All right, hello everyone. Happy Monday. In this video, we're going to be going over using percentages. So, a little recap: the past week, we developed an understanding of what percentages are. So, basically, percents in their most basic format are fractions, but specifically, it's fractions out of 100. So, with a denominator of 100. Today, you're going to begin learning how to use percents in real life. So that's the focus today. How are we going to be using percents in real life, or in this context, in real life word problems? That's the only way that we'll see percents in real life problems. You should be taking notes on this in your notebook. That your notebook will be checked to make sure you have all the information down. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right. At Lincoln Middle School, 70% of the 950 students walk to and from school. How many students walk to and from school? So just to illustrate, I'm gonna highlight some things, some important things. Here we have 70%, and then we have 950 students. What does this mean? So 70%, 70 out of 100 of the 950 total students, that's the total, because it says this percent out of the total. So now let me grab my pen again. So first, I'm going to go ahead and write 70% as a fraction. 70% means 70 out of 100. So I just converted that percent to 70 out of 100, a fraction. Now, what am I going to do with the 950? Well, this percent, this fraction is equivalent to another fraction. So what this says, this fraction, this really says for every 100 students, 70 of them walk. For every 100 students, 70 of them walk. That's what this fraction says. But the thing is, there isn't 100 students. There's a lot more. There's 950 students. So we're gonna make this equivalent. There is actually 950 students. 950 students. So if you notice, this is kind of like a ratio. Ratios are fractions. Fractions are percentages. It's all connected. Again, I'm going to go through it all together. So all I did was I converted 70% to a fraction, 70 out of 100. This says for every 100 students, 70 of them walk, but there is not 100 students. There is actually 950 students. So now I have to make the connection like I did in ratios. How am I going to go from 100 to 950? How am I going to go from 900? Sorry, how am I going to go from 100 to 950? This is where your calculator is going to come in handy, because 950 is not a multiple of 100. So what we're going to do is in our calculator, we're going to divide these two numbers. 950 divided by 100. Type that in, and you should get the following: 9.5. So this means that 100 times 9.5 is 950. Let's check it out. Type this into the calculator. 100 times 9.5, and make sure you get this number. You always want to self-check, because if you don't get this number, that means you have to change this before you continue. Since that works, 100 times 9.5 to get 950. That means, like a ratio, What you do on one side, you have to do to the other. So I'm going to multiply using the calculator is fine. 70, 70 times 9.5. 70 times 9.5. Go ahead and type that into your calculator. 70 times 9.5. When you do that, we get this number 665. So, what this means is that if the percentage, if it's 70% of this walk to school, that as a number, 665 students walk to and from school. So I'm going to type that out. These are word problems. We got to type on our answer. 665 students walk to and from school. Now again, I'm just going to do a little recap on the ending here. So I had to find the relationship, find the pattern. We found that I can multiply 100 by 9.5 to get 950. Since fractions are ratios, what I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. That told me that this number of students walk to and from school. But let's connect these fractions. Notice this says 100% is 950. So out of all the students, 950 would be 100%. And 665 is 70%. So these kind of the numerators and denominators are connected. If I asked you what's 100% of the students, you would tell me 950 is 100%. If I told you what is 70% of the students, you would say 665 is 70%. So these fractions, these ratios are connected. And this is how you're going to use percentages. For a lot of these word problems, I'm going to give you a percent, give you either the total number of students or a part number of the students, and your job is going to be to find the missing value. In this case, they asked us to find what is 70% of the total number of students, which was 950. I'm going to take a pause here to let you catch up with this. Go ahead and pause it. You need to copy this work down. Do copy down the word problem. Copy it down. It's not a lot. It's 2 sentences. Oh, and if you want to title your notebook, using percentages would be a good title. Number two. This one's kind of long, so you do not have to copy this word problem down, but do label it. Just put number two. All right, let's go ahead and read this one. In order to get your driver's license, you must, sorry, in order to get your first driver's license, you have to take a rules of the road test. On the test, there are 35 questions. You must score at least an 80% to get your license. How many questions must a person answer correctly to pass the test? So again, there's 35 total questions, and we have to get an 80%. Right away, as soon as I see percent, I'm like, well, let me write that as a fraction. 80% is 80 out of 100 as a fraction. What's 100% of the test? 100% would mean you get 35 questions right. So the 35 questions is the entire 100% of the test. We have to figure out how many questions is 80%. How many questions would be 80%? So again, like ratios, we have to figure out how do I go from 100 to 35? How do I go from 100 to 35? Well, we can divide the two. Let me, if I divide 35 by 100, that equals 0.35. What does this mean? This means that 100 times 0.35 is 35. Go ahead and test that out. In your calculator, multiply 100 times 0.35. Does it get you 35? Again, you always want to self-check because if this number is wrong, you should stop and fix this before you do anything else. Once you realize, hey, this does work, like a ratio, what you do on the bottom or on one side, you have to do to the other side, in this case, the top. So now we have to do 80 multiplied by, multiplied by 0.35. 80 times 0.35. And we get a 28. What does this mean? This means that if I got 28 questions right, that is exactly an 80%. So, in how many questions must a person answer correctly? We need to answer 28 questions, at least 28. We can answer 29 correctly, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. But if I got a 27, that would be lower than 80%. So that would be a not passing score. So they wouldn't give me my license. Again, put that in a sentence. A person must enter at least 20 questions correctly. At least 20 questions correctly. All percentages are our fractions. So that's why we're using, this is called a proportion. A proportion is a comparison of two equivalent fractions. This fraction is equivalent to this fraction. So just to illustrate that, this is going to be the setup for most, if not all, of our percentage problems. You're going to have two fractions. One of them is always going to be your percent. So if it says 75%, it's going to be 75 over 100. If it says 85%, it's going to be 85 out of 100. That's easy to remember because that's how we learned it. Percentages are fractions out of 100. Your second fraction is going to be a part out of a whole, which means total. You can think about it, um, everything together. So, like in the first problem, the whole student population, the total student population was 950. There's 950 students at Lincoln. How many questions made up the test for the driver's license problem? 35 questions made up the test. And this is the part, so like the smaller percentage. So whether it's 70% or 80%, this is going to be the proportion we're going to use. I want to say for almost every problem. I think we might actually use it for every problem. Proportion. Write this down. Highlight it. Put it in the box. Put stars around it. Something that tells you this is important. If you remember this, I can guarantee you're gonna get majority of the percentage problems correct. If you can remember this, you should be solid. And then how are we going to use this? So usually every problem will give you either two of these things. So whether it's the whole and the percent or these two things, they're always going to give you two pieces of information and then one blank. So in the last two problems, this part was blank. And then lastly, we'll do one more. A school will have a spring dance if at least 40% of the 450 students plan to attend. How many students must attend in order for for the school to have the dance? Show your work. So I'm not going to solve this one with you, but I'll help you set it up in the proportion. So 40% of the 450 students, so it's 450 students in total. So 40% means 40 out of 100. There's 450 students in total. Your job is to figure out how many students is 40%. So what's this missing blank? You have everything you need to be successful in this. You have two examples. You have a calculator. And you have your common sense. There's going to be answers that make no type of sense. There's going to be one answer that makes kind of good sense with this problem. You use it. Ask yourself, does my answer make sense? And then this is the problem I will check tomorrow. I will see how you did with it. Did you attempt it? If you struggle, that's okay. This is the first day you're learning this of using percent. Not everyone gets it on the first day. You should have done the warm up for today at the beginning of class. Now you're done with the video lesson. And then the last thing for you today is grab a spy review number 5. It is at the desk at the front of the classroom where I usually have my computer plugged in. Grab a copy and then get started on that. It is one-sided this week, and that one is actually going to be due. I'm not sure if Wednesday or Friday. The reason is because you guys have map testing for math on Thursday and Friday, so I want you to focus on that. So I may make it do Wednesday, I may make it do Friday. I'll give you guys a definite date tomorrow. Thank you guys. Hopefully you guys are great today.